everybody, how's it going? I wanted to start off today by saying thank you so much. This Soul Orchid project has really taken off over the past few months in ways that I never would have expected, and I really appreciate it. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. I am up to over 300 streams a day, which is insane. On YouTube here, my music has become more popular than these trumpet videos, and I never expected that. You know, when I started this Soul Orchid project, it was kind of like a creative outlet for everything I wanted to do independently. Here in the Bay Area, I've recorded for a lot of groups. I have recorded with a few electronica and EDM groups, and I just wanted my own independent name to just sort of dump my creative projects that I sort of made on my own. And I did not expect it to take off like this. Lots of exciting things coming up. I have a new release. I'm re-releasing Spacey here in the next few months with some minor tweaks. This summer, I am also going to have my first full EP, everything that you're sort of getting in a slow drip here, pressed onto vinyl. So exciting. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Make sure you follow me on all the socials. Make sure that you subscribe here on YouTube. I'm going to have a lot of cool things coming up here. Also, a quick thanks here to Andronic Music. Another big thanks to Lander, who put me on their Rising Artists Spotify group, which really has just blown up my popularity and in ways that I never would have expected. I am being streamed in so many countries right now. It's insane. It's wild to wake up in the morning and look at your stats, and you have people all over the world who are listening to your stuff and saving it. It's so cool. So thank you all so much. But anyway, we're down to the meat of today's video. For years, I have always been a huge fan of the Martin Committee. This is my Martin Committee. It is a 2-bore, standard, non-custom. My serial number is in the 152,000 range, which I believe is the late 40s, early 50s. I could be wrong. Here's the real one. I'm gonna look it up later. This is an awesome horn that I bought from my friend Mark, who lives in Fresno, California. This is an awesome example of a Martin Committee. It is, like I said, the non-custom, so there's no nickel in this horn at all. The entire thing is yellow brass, which is my favorite committee. And like most committees that are good, this one has had the crap played out of it. You could just take a look at it, and you can see that there's a few patches on the horn. Here, you can sort of see where the first valve casing is. So many people have played this horn that the brass itself is getting some concave sections to it, which is wild, especially right here in the pinky area. There's a little divot right there from someone's pinky that's been there for years and years. You know, it's not uncommon to see a horn that lost all of its finish like this one, but it's starting to lose brass. The valves also do not have great compression. I have to use some Ultra Pure Classic pretty much every time I play it, just to get a little bit of compression out of this guy. There is some compression. Actually, there's like none. It's pretty much, it's like, there's no compression. Also, the metal is extremely thin. I mean, this feels like it's like paper thin. You know, the tubing is, you know, I love this horn. I do play it sometimes. I try to take it easy on this horn just because it is so worn out. But most committees that you find today that are worth buying, worth playing, are worn out like this. They're just really, really good horns. They're very unique. However, I have been looking around for a committee replacement. You know, not to, you know, fully replace my old school committee, but it'd be nice to have a modern committee that I could play without having to worry about, you know, damaging it because it's newer. And maybe some tweaks are done to make some things better on the horn, like intonation or just build quality. So I went through a few modern committee copies. I had a Lawler C7 for a bit, which was fine. I tried a Kanstul Handcraft, which I did not like. I tried an Adams A9, which I also didn't like. And finally, I found a horn that I really liked. The Kanstul 1603, also known as the Kanstul Handcraft. It seems like the few Kanstul Handcrafts that actually did get built were kept by the original owners and just sort of hoarded, and they're impossible to find. Through talking with some friends, I did find one person that had a Kanstul Handcraft. My good friend, Kevin Molinax. Kevin is a really good guy in Las Vegas that I feel like I've played with before. Our paths have crossed in some musical way, but I found out that he had a Kanstul Handcraft. I messaged him, and yes, he was willing to sell me his handcraft. I was heading out to New Orleans for a Mardi Gras gig. My band was going to spend about a week out there, and I had about an 8-hour layover in Las Vegas on my way east. So I decided to visit my good friend Mike Del Quadro of Del Quadro Custom Trumpets and Kevin at Excalibur. So I landed in Vegas, took an Uber to the Excalibur Casino on the Las Vegas Strip, met up with Kevin, and right in the lobby there, in the front of Excalibur, I got to play test this beauty. The Kanstul Handcraft 1603. And yeah, it's in silver plate. I'm not sure how many of these were made in silver, but man, what a horn, huh? So let's get into the Kanstul 1603 and what makes it special. So I have to double check here, but I'm pretty sure the Kanstul 1603 was made right around the early 2010s, maybe 2015. And for those who have played them, because remember, these were not mass produced, you could find an Adams A9 everywhere. You could find some Lawler C7s out there, which those are fantastic horns that are very well built, but maybe a few dozen of these Kanstuls were ever made. So if you've never even seen one, I wouldn't be surprised. But the Kanstul 1603 was built on the bones of the large bore Martin Committee with the 3-bore. And this one has that Martin 3-bore, I believe it's a .468, I believe. I have to look that up, but it's basically, if you look up the specs of a Martin Committee large bore, that's this horn. So much of this horn is just like the original. I mean, take a look at the bracing. The fact that Kanstul went out of their way to build some of this bespoke, bracing here just to match the original is really cool. Look at the receiver. The receivers are dead on. We'll get to the valves in a second because those are very special. But I mean, even take a look at how the first valve slide is oriented right there. I'm trying to do two things at once. But yeah, they're sort of cocked to the side to make them more vertical, just like the original Martin. Take a look at the third slide ring there, off to the side. You can check out that pinky hook right there. Pretty similar. Bracing is the same like we talked about, all the way down here. Very cool. One thing that I do love is on the original Committee, I'm sure you've seen these before, but the Martin Committee is kind of in script. It says the Martin Committee model. And take a look what they did with the Kanstul Handcraft. And the same sort of style. The Kanstul. And the same sort of loopy script. Now what's really wild about this horn is they feel identical. If anything, obviously this is the large bore. Mine's a medium bore Committee. This is a large bore. It feels scaled up slightly, of course, because the tubing's a little bit bigger. But I mean, this horn feels, so evenly weighted to the classics. And I'm still noticing small things like this little brace right here, the little bracelet, little ball on it, just like this one. It's crazy that Kanstul went out of their way to make a copy of the Committee that was so aesthetically similar to the original. They didn't do any parts bend things at all. It's kind of insane. Now, one thing about Kanstul that I do love is that they use the same valve block across all of their horns, pretty much. Except for a few of the custom horns, like the 101 had a different valve block. But this one is the same valve block that's on every Kanstul. So this is the one sort of parts bend, part that was put on this Kanstul Handcraft. However, these valves do not feel like other Kanstul valves. Most Kanstul valves that I've played sort of they feel like a little loose on the top, and as you push them down, they get a little bit of tension. These feel entirely different. They feel super loose in a good way. The springs are super light springs, I would say. And that sort of light spring action makes it feel like a vintage horn. Also, not to mention that these top caps were custom built for this horn. You can see they're kind of chunkier, kind of bigger, and they have some weight to them. So when you press them, it has a lot of weight there. When they come back up, they sort of pop up and spring just a bit. That valve action just feels like an old school horn. And it really feels like you're stepping back in time with this horn. It's a new horn that was built maybe less than 10 years ago, but it feels vintage. Now, one other sort of unique thing about this horn is the original Committee had just your regular bead on that bell. Of course, unique bell flare, but the bead was kind of, basic, just your regular bead. But on the Kanstul Handcraft, you have that bell flare shape that, you know, you love about committees, but this feels more like a French bead right here. Sort of more flat instead of, you know, a hard bead here, sort of more on the flat side. Not sure if it's actually a French bead, but that's one improvement over the original committee. Now, before we get into the feel of this thing, we just have to talk about the build quality because it is unreal. Valves are fantastic. You have those brass guides in there. Compression, insane. Don't want to do that too much, but the compression's insane. The fit and finish are great. The serial number ends with 07, and you have 07 engraved on every single removable part. I believe that when these were new, they MSRP'd for around $4,500, and this one was about $47 for the silver plate. And I've never seen another one of these in silver plate. Underneath the silver plating, you do have nickel. You have nickel outer slides right here, which I'll show right here. Obviously, you can't see that with the silver plate. So, playing characteristics. Holy smokes. This horn feels like a cornet in the best way. You know, a lot of times when you get a large bore trumpet, it feels like you're going to have to just throw all your air into it and it's going to exhaust you while you're playing. But this horn is wild. You can just sort of whisper into it and the response is so quick and so immediate. The intonation's really solid, just slots right in there, but you have a lot of motion if you want to bend any notes. And everything feels like it hardly takes any effort to get up to the next partial. So soloing is just super easy because you're not worried about the mechanics of the horn. You're not worried about, hey, if I go F sharp G, is that gonna come out right away? Do I need to center that pitch before I articulate it, or can I just slur up there? You just sort of think it and it comes out. Now again, I record a lot of EDM stuff, and what I love about this horn is the tone color is so thick, so solid, so vintage. A lot of times as a studio player, you'll get a request from somebody to record something and they want a vintage, jazzy trumpet sound, even if they're playing contemporary lines. The issue with that is if I pull out, you know, a Xeno and play what they want, it's not going to have the sound they want. They don't want a bright orchestral sound on contemporary stuff. They want that jazzy, you know, maybe some pecky articulations in there, and they want it on a horn with a lot of color. This horn gives you that. When I play this horn, I'm using my CKB 1.5B. A B cup on this horn feels fantastic. So here's a little bit of this horn in context. You're going to hear a little bit of Okonski's Walking to a Home. So here's a little bit of this horn in context. First off with Okonski's Walking to a Home, and then a little bit of stuttery effects on the Gorillaz Busted in Blue. Before I go, we got some new merch in the store. Check it out. Yeah, if you want to have your own soul orchid on you, we have everything printed on comfort colors, the good thick stuff. We got long sleeves, we got sweatshirts, we got t-shirts, we got bags. So make sure you check out the merch store. Thank you all so much.